We're going to start off talking about why Spurs are not holding on to these leads. Obviously, we saw what happened at Everton, 2-1 up until the last minute, and then that free kick comes in, needless free kick to give away from Dejan Kulusevski. But it does carry on a bit of a theme this season where we are struggling to hold on to leads at times. We'll start off with you, James. Why do you think that is?
I think recently, not to give them excuses, but I think obviously with these injuries, you kind of starting the bench players that you'd bring on when you want to hold on to the lead. So you're starting like your Højbjergs and players like that you'd probably bring on to hold on to leads. Maybe it's a bit of that. I think there's the lack of, that's a lot of energy to play handball. And I think towards the end, they might be tired from that. That twinned with not having we have got it now, obviously with Sonny back as well, but not having the depth that we had. I think it's elements of a bit of both. And needs massive work on. So hopefully we see more of that once, as we've seen so many times, we don't hold on to the lead. I'm sure Ange's savvy to it and looking at ways to stop it. But I think it's a mixture of all that, not having the strength and depth of bringing on your players to hold on to the lead and the energy from playing handball.
Ash, do you think it is a major problem that what's going on at the moment? Because obviously it happened at Everton, but before that, it hasn't been happening too often. There was one at Aston Villa. I think we went 1-0 up that game. And then Wolves just before that when we conceded 2 in the last minute.
Well, we've dropped 18 points this season from leading positions.
Is it a problem, Ash?
I think it's down to the characteristics of the individuals we have on the pitch and their skill sets. So what I mean by that, Højbjerg, for me, when he's on the pitch, and sometimes a little bit Bentancur, we can rush the play. So I remember at the start of the season, we were doing patterns of play where we kind of slowed it down a little bit, and it wasn't so rush. And I do understand why Ange is trying to get those balls over the top into like your Werner's. Werner's always free, kind of get into that front three and trying to attack them. But I think sometimes we lose possession because we lose control of the game, in my opinion. And I think sometimes, and I know fans hate this as well, by the way. So let me just get it out there. People hate the sideways passing. People hate the backwards passing. But at times, I feel like it's a small tactic, which is a necessary evil when you're trying to control a situation, when you're trying to hold on to a lead, or you're trying to push the players up the pitch. So there's times when I think you do little 1-2s, little triangles, just to draw the teams out, if that makes sense. Or if we're playing out from the back, and it's risky because like you wouldn't normally play out from the back and take risks, but we're doing it, and that's where we're losing the ball. You want to take the risks higher up the pitch. Sometimes we're not doing that even, and teams are just sitting back, getting congested and saying Spurs want to do, 1,000 passes before, we penetrate that box. But for me, it's about that game intelligence, knowing when to do it and knowing when not to do it. And I think sometimes we're too hurried, we're too like eager beaver to get that ball in, if that makes sense. Like, get that ball over the top, get it into Johnson, get it into Richie's feet, blah, blah, blah. And then we end up losing possession and control of the game. And then the other team they've got their game plan. They want to go direct, but they're used to going direct. And I think we're mishmashing styles. And that's the reason why, and we're mishmashing teams as well. And that's the reason why we're not quite controlling games, or we're losing at the last minute. We've got players that maybe at the start of the season, they were doing the 1-2 passes and keeping it tight. And then now we've got other players that might do the long ball over the top in and behind, a bit like Liverpool, like how they go direct. So it's like Ange ball. I think the chemistry between like a Basuma, a Sarr, and a Maddison is slightly different to maybe like a Maddison, a Bentancur, and a Højbjerg, if that makes sense. So it just depends on who's on the pitch. Like I even saw Maddison say at a post-match after, I think it was, I forgot who it was. I think it was Brentford. It was his first game back. And he was like, sometimes I'm in a space and I see someone else in my space. So that tells me that natural flow, that natural chemistry isn't quite there. Things that happen instinctively aren't quite there. And I feel like the same with Bentancur. When he's on the pitch, sometimes he's rushing it. Where normally Bentancur is smooth. You know what I'm saying? He's taking his time. He's getting a touch on the ball first, and then he's making that pass. But now it's like he's trying to hit that ball in quick, and then we're losing that vital possession in midfield. Teams are hitting us, and then we're panicking. Even when we lost that ball, everyone's blaming Kulusevski, but Richarlison rushed out with it, didn't he? He rushed out with it, lost possession. Then Kulu tried to win the possession back. Then the free kick happened. Then we got punished, and there was a lack of concentration at the back when we change. Remember, my man Dragonson, he come in, he's brand new. So he's all learning the Premiership. He doesn't know where to be positioned. Like he knows where to be positioning, but he's understanding his two teammates. Like and Van der Ven, I know he's playing in the back three. I don't remember us playing in the back three. But with these players, have we played with the back three? It's all kind of new, and these little nuances happen in games, and every game's slightly different. And I think that's why it's hard to underpin why Spurs aren't quite clicking or why it's not quite working at the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, Sim, do you think it's a case of probably just because of how stop-start this season has been, and it's been like not a settled 11 throughout the majority of the season? The majority of these games where we've dropped points did come in that period where, you know, we're playing Emerson Royale and Ben Davis at the back, and we just didn't have a fluid 11.
I think that's definitely a part of it. I think how Ange sees the game, right? I think if you watch Man City against Brentford on Monday night, you saw once they went 3-1 up, they just controlled the game through possession. They just passed it around, as Ash is saying, making little 1-2s, making space for each other. Brentford didn't even know where to press because there were so many places they had to basically press Man City. The Man City were just able to pass around them, find the possession. They were able to control the game that way, just through pure technique and managing the game. I think that's what Ange is trying to do. I think that's what Ange wants to do. But the problem is, as James was saying, which is absolutely right, we have a lot of our first team and technical players out at the moment. So we're ending the game with a 3 at the back. We're ending the game with Skip and Sarr as our midfield too, and the front three are, even on our best day at the moment, aren't very good at keeping the ball. So it is leading to Ange wanting to Ange doesn't want to basically be a time waster, manage the game that way, which maybe the players on the pitch, that's what he should be doing. But that's not his philosophy. His philosophy is he wants to try and see out the game like Man City see out the game, with that pure technique, pass the opposition to death. But we didn't have the players on the pitch to do that. So we're trying to pass around Everton, we're trying to keep the ball, and we're trying to basically pass them, see out the game that way. Yeah, we're doing it with Skip and with Sarr and with Johnson or Brian Hill and Richarlison, who just aren't very good at passing, moving, keeping the ball, having that game intelligence on the pitch to kind of see out the game that way. And it's leading to, when we're under pressure and when teams are basically upping their game in the latter stages of the game because they know they've got to make a last ditch push to try and get a point, we're unable to hang on to the ball and we're putting ourselves under pressure, because actually what we're really doing is playing a risky game. Because Man City, the way they play, where they pass the ball to death, it's a risky game, but they're so good at it that they're able to pull it off and make it look easy. But actually, it's not very easy, because it relies on you being extremely have extreme quality technically, and it relies on you being very good with your close control, being very good weight of pass, all these different things. And the players that we're using to see out these games don't have those kind of qualities, and that is a big problem when you're trying to, especially when you have only a 1-goal lead. Look, if we'd killed off the game and scored that third goal in that second half, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. But the fact of the matter is, we didn't get that third goal. The last 10 minutes we're only 2-1 up, and we put ourselves under pressure with the way we play. Ange doesn't want to just go long, take it to the corner flag. He wants us to keep going, try and get that third goal and try and kill off the game and try and see out the game with our quality. But at the moment, with the squad that we have, with the injuries we have, we're just not able to do that. If we had Basuma available, if we had Maddison and Bentancur fully fit, if we had maybe Kulusevski in good form, maybe it's a different situation. But right now, that's not the case. So we're ending the game with these players who don't have the technical ability that is required to see out the games in the way that we're trying to see out the games. And that's what I'm trying to that's my point. And then obviously we're giving away set pieces as well in stupid positions, maybe because we're a young, sometimes naive team at the latter stage of the games. We're giving encouragement to the team, and when you do that, that gives them that like a kind of encouragement to push you even further, win those set pieces. And we're not the best at defending set pieces, and also obviously why we ended up succumbing at the end of the day. So it is a problem that Ange has to sort out, but I do believe it will be rectified once the technical level of the squad is heightened at even more, where the bench players, even players like Lo Celso, can come off the bench and up that technical level as well. I think that will happen once the squad is more fully fit. Hopefully, that problem will be rectified.
You cast your mind back to the first 10 games of the season, right? We were seeing out games. We were looking good in the latter stages of games when we had our first choice 11. Bissouma at the base, Sarr and Maddison were controlling things in the midfield. I think it's all down to the injuries and the way the squad has gone throughout the season, and just the amount of injuries that we have had and suspensions, and now the Asia and the AFCON as well. And I do feel like once we get that settled team back, we'll start to look a lot more confident and assured in games.
Do you think, though, as well, though, just sorry to cut you, that at the start of the season, we played the majority of the teams in the kind of lower half of the table? Now we're playing teams in the more top half of the table. I know we beat Liverpool with the late winner and the deflection.
We drew with Arsenal as well.
We knew we drew with Arsenal and Man U. I'm not taking that away from it. But outside of that, when we played the teams in the second half of the table, we've either drawn with those teams, or we've kind of like lost, like Wolves, Brighton, some of those teams there. Obviously, like I said, Newcastle, Man United, we got results, but maybe like those teams where we have to kind of have a different approach, we haven't quite figured it out yet. Do you think that's got something to do with it?
I don't even think so, Ash, though, because you look at it, right? The Chelsea game, that's when it all started to go wrong with the crazy injuries that we got in that game. We were battering Chelsea that game before all that started to go wrong. We would have won that game, in my opinion. You go, and then from then on, we just didn't have a settled team throughout the whole season. I think if we put that settled team at Molineux, I think we go and win that game. Aston Villa, even without a settled team, I think Bentancur looked flying in those first 20 minutes, and I thought we looked really good. So I genuinely believe that if we would have had this settled team throughout the whole season, we'd be talking about a different Spurs. And up until a couple of weeks ago, we was talking like if that Chelsea game didn't happen, we'd be sitting top of the league.
Yeah, and I think if you can't play Angeball without having someone like Mickey van der Ven at the back either, the way that we're playing, having that exposure behind is crazy difference to Emerson Royal and Davis done well there to fill in, but they're not natural in that position. And that speed of him, I think he just come out as the fastest player in the league at the moment. That was what was keeping it together as well at the back from it. And losing that, there's an image, isn't there, when Van der Ven's hobbling off and Maddison's coming off. But all was missing was a knife in the back of Postecoglou in that very picture, and you see where it starts to fall apart. So yeah, I agree. I think that was a massive turning point.
And I also think we have a bit of an issue in our front three when it was, I mentioned before, but we're ending the game right with Hill, Richarlison, and I think it was Kulusevski in the front three against Everton. And Everton, right at the end of the game, they're pushing up. They're putting more caution to the wind. And the benefit for a team like Spurs in that position is if they're going to put more caution to the wind, they're going to leave more space for you to exploit. But if you get the ball to them and they've got acres of space to run into, those aren't the players to really exploit that. And it led to them losing the ball consistently, and the ball just kept coming back, and we weren't able to sustain any sort of pressure on Everton in the latter stages, which meant Everton were able to pile the pressure on us, and we succumbed to that pressure. And maybe now we've got Son coming back. We've got Solomon hopefully in a month, but forget Solomon. We've now got attackers who hopefully can come off the bench and provide a threat, rather than the attackers that we had who just weren't able in that position to kind of exploit the space that the opposition were going to leave once they're chasing the game. Yeah. And that can be an issue.
Yeah, I completely agree. But Ash, you wanna just finish off on what you were saying before, or you want to respond to that comment?
No. I've literally thrown out because we're very close to our fully fit team.
Yeah,
and like it would have been interesting to see what it would have looked like against some of those teams. And I do agree with you guys, the points that you brought up and you've made. I just worry that we get to the full strength team, and then all of a sudden we're still not putting them away, and then we're like, then what is it now? What is it now? Because remember, Van der Ven and Romero came back. I expected us to start like climbing the table, but it hasn't happened. Then Maddison came back because I thought, maybe it's Maddison. That's what it is, guys. It's Maddison. Maddison came back in, and like, oh man, we're still not quite ticking.
Sonny to come back, Ash. Don't worry, Sonny to come back.
See, my guy. I'm not trying to be that. I'm not trying to be that guy that obviously puts a downer on things. But I was like, when he gets back. When he gets back.
I would say though, we've got a different Bentancur in a minute and a different Maddison. They haven't quite hit form from before, so I think it's not the players coming back; it's the form of the players coming back, and maybe they need a few games to reintegrate and We don't know what Ange Ball's like to play, especially coming back from an injury. It might be like it must be.
You know what? All I was going to say to that was like, obviously Romero came back, and like he did improve the team. I felt when he did come back, and then Van der Ven came back as well, and I agree. But I think Van der Ven's just looked exceptional since he's come back. I forget one game when he was like meh, and then the other games he's just like on it, like best defender in the league. And but we still lost against Everton. So I'm like.
We drew, Ash. We drew.
I felt like a loss.
Felt like a loss, yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? It was 2 points dropped.
Ash, we cut the gap to the top to 7 points. I don't know what you're chatting about.
I'm moving mad still, I can't lie. But
I think you got that down. The set pieces, though, was their only threat, wasn't it, really? Where Van der Ven
it was. But I think that was their go-to. That's Sean Dyche all over for you.
More of a lottery, isn't it?
But we still didn't handle it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I'm hoping, I'm optimistic that, like you guys said, it's a case of they're coming back from injuries. It's a form thing as well. Like once their form kicks in, then we're going to be back to where we were, and we'll be out bossing teams. We'll start getting those results. And then if that is the case, then I'm expecting, I don't know. What are you guys thinking?
Well, look, for me, Ash, I know we've had all these players back and it's been really positive. But if you look on Saturday, you look at the bench still, right? It's still who we got to bring on. Brian Hill's coming on. Ollie Skip's coming on to see out these games. It's still a bit of an issue when it comes to getting that second win in the latter stages of games to kind of have the quality with the energy which we have. And I think once we're able to like bring on, let's say we're starting with midfield of Basuma, Sarr and Maddison again, all of a sudden you can bring on a Bentancur and a Højbjerg off the bench rather than starting them. Once we have Son, Rishi and, I don't know, Kulusevski like we did before, then you can bring on a Werner, you can bring on a Johnson off the bench instead of them starting and not having any options. So all of a sudden, instead of bring on like a Brian Hill to try and see out a game, you'll bring on different quality of player to see out the game and give you a second win. And I think that's going to be massively beneficial. And I think James is absolutely right as well. Just because they're back fit and available, does that mean they're necessarily match fit straight away and at the top of their game? I think give Maddison a game or two, give Bentancur a bit more time as well. And even the centre-backs, Romero and Van der Ven, even though they've been back for a bit, they still need to get to get back into their rhythm and all that kind of stuff because they've been out for a while. So I think just because they're straight away back doesn't mean it's going to instantly click straight away. They still need time to build up their match fitness, get back into the rhythm, and then we'll see. They'll see them at their best. I really believe that.
And I think people also need to remember that we're a work in progress. You know, this is the first 6 months of Ange Postecoglou, and I think actually, when you look at it, we're further along at this stage than probably a Man City was when Pep Guardiola first came, or a Liverpool were when Jurgen Klopp first came. Most definitely an Arsenal were when Mikel Arteta first came. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be looking forward to this second half of the season. Go on, Ash.
Bringing on a fresh Werner, like what you just said just then, Sim. That's mouthwatering, isn't it? Bringing on a fresh Werner when their players are tiring. That is a great point.
Yeah, and also bringing on Ivan Perisic in those first 10 games was so important for us. In how many games did he come on and just relieve that pressure, get good crosses in the box? And we missed that massively. Sorry, Ash.
Yeah, no, that's cool. The only worry is for me is I feel like some players, they need that regular playing time. They need that consistency. And I'm just hoping that Werner is that player we can just bring on and then he's booming as a super sub, as opposed to like Werner just needs as many games as possible and he needs to keep that rhythm up for him to come good, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's like, you know, like Richie. Richie's a prime example. Richie was stinking out the place. We gave him an arm around the shoulder. We listened to his mental health issues, and then we started playing him. No matter what happened, we played him. Then he started repaying the faith. He started scoring the goals. And he's a player, like, I feel like if you dropped a Richie now and then you tried to bring him on a super sub, I'm not sure if that would work. Like, I feel like he's that type of player. He consistently needs to start playing many minutes, many games in a row to find his rhythm. And I'm just hoping that's the same with I'm hoping that's not the same, with like a Werner. Like, we could just bring him on and like Son comes off and he still has that same level, not maybe as a Son level, but he's got enough in him to kind of affect the game when they've got tired legs and we start winning. Because I do agree with you guys. I think that has been an issue, and that has been a reason why our bench has been weak. Do you know what I'm saying? Our bench has been weak. But now, when everyone's coming back, all of a sudden, our bench is looking strong and we're looking like a stronger outfit.
Yeah, and you can argue and maybe in the last few weeks, that there have been definitely games where the game management has been poor. Like, you look at Brentford, could have easily dropped points in that game late in the game. You look at Man United and Burnley; they both missed big chances right at the death to try and nearly get a draw in those games. Obviously, the Everton game we did end up giving up the result, but maybe you could argue, Ange should, in these periods, shut up shop, and he should adjust because we don't have the players to see out the game in the way he wants to. But this is kind of how he's learning about these players, about this team even now, and this is how you kind of judge whether these players can do what you need them to do. And once you see them on the pitch, like not being able to hold on to the ball in the 90th minute under pressure and all that kind of stuff, this is how he learns. If he just changes tactics to adjust to the players that he has available, he's not going to learn about these players he has available, whether they're up to it or not. Or maybe in the future, he can decide, okay, actually this player I will keep because he can do what I'm asking him to. Or maybe this player isn't good enough because when these players were out and he stepped in, he wasn't able to do the things I was required while we were trying to see out these games. So yeah, you could argue maybe we would get different results if he changed kind of the way he's trying to see out games. But that's not what Ange is trying to do. He's trying to learn about this squad for the future, and it's going to benefit us in the long term.
I think the same. And is it a direct quote where he said there's no plan B, is to do plan A better? Is that a direct quote from him?
Yeah, I think so. I think from his Celtic days, or maybe even before that.
Right. That's a little bit concerning, but I agree with Sim. And I think it'd be down to the personnel, and it's sort of showing if the player's right or not, and getting the right player profile in the future by keep playing the way that he wants to play.
Yeah, because I've heard people say, like, I don't believe in this, by the way, but I've heard people say that he should drop the line further back. He should stop. He should be a bit pragmatic at times, and that's just not Ange ball. And like you said, Sim, if he hasn't got the players for it, then he's gonna lose a couple games. But maybe that's what he was talking about. That this is the bump in the road. These are the bumps in the road that he's actually talking about. Because guess what? These players, they need to understand the style of football. I don't want to revert and then it sends mixed messages, and then players are like, hang on a second, I thought we were like attacking. I thought we were highlining. Do you know what I'm saying?
You're right.
And for him as a manager, it makes him seem softer if he's going back on his actual word as well. Like, do we believe what he says now? He's shutting up shop. So I agree. I think he needs to keep to his principles, and we might lose a few games, but we just need to pattern up. We need to improve in that summer window and buy those right technical players for him that he needs to play the football that he wants to achieve the goals that we want as fans. Do you know what I mean?
This will help weed out which ones to replace as well, I think, won't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives him an excuse to go to the board, to go to the transfer committee in the summer and being like, look, these guys do not fit the system that I want to play. I need to bring in players that do fit the system. And it'll give him a bit more power as well.
Sorry.
Exactly. No, 100%. You're right.